You know your weekend's gone sideways when a woman with a clipboard, a fake badge, and the ego of a minor warlord tells you to evacuate your own hammock on your own land. That's how it started. Darla Penrose, HOA president of a subdivision I'm not even in, rolled up to my lake like she was redrawing borders, declared it community property, like she'd just discovered America and I was the squatter's problem. She had backup too. The HOA cavalry, 4 clipboard crusaders and a guy filming like it was a nature documentary. I didn't know whether to hand out lawn chairs or call a lawyer. You ever seen someone act so confident with Google Maps in one hand and delusion in the other? That was the day I realized my peaceful fishing weekend had just turned into a full-blown land war, and the general wore pearls and orthopedic sneakers. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, especially if your HOA thinks your property lines are optional. This whole saga started with one quiet lake and a very loud woman. So there I was, brushing my teeth under the trees when the sheriff's deputy shows up. Officer Travis Dunn. Good guy. Known him for years. He walks up with his usual calm and says, "We got a report of illegal camping." I blinked at him, toothbrush still hanging from my mouth like a flag of disbelief. "Illegal camping where?" I asked. "Right here," he said, pointing to my own boots. Before I could respond, Darla jumped in like she was testifying to Congress. "This man is squatting on protected community shoreline. He's endangering the watershed with open flame and poor sanitation." I gestured to my setup, a legal fire ring, sealed trash bag, portable toilet, and asked if that looked like environmental terrorism. Travis asked to see my paperwork. I keep it all in my truck. Deed, survey, tax records, even the one that says, "Not subject to HOA governance." The deputy looked through it carefully, nodding. Meanwhile, Darla paced like a prosecutor waiting for a guilty verdict and muttered something about community integrity. Then came the line that changed everything. "Sir, this looks in order," Travis said. Darla's face dropped an inch. "If the law won't stop him," she snapped, "then I'll change the law." The next morning, Sunday, I thought maybe that was the end of it. I made coffee, broke camp, started packing like always, and then I heard tires crunching gravel. Not one car, 3. A convoy. Darla's white Mercedes rolled in first, followed by 2 dark SUVs that looked like they were either here for an HOA meeting or to serve a federal warrant. Out stepped Darla, sunglasses, heels, and a laminated badge that might as well have said Queen of Make-Believe. Behind her came 4 others in business casual slacks, clipboards, confused expressions. They looked around like tourists who'd taken a wrong turn onto a ranch. "Environmental impact inspection," she barked. "Community jurisdiction confirmed." I walked up calmly and said, "You're on private property." Darla ignored me and pointed to my fire ring, evidence of contamination, she said with the gravity of someone uncovering oil spills, though it was clearly just cooled ash. One of the men whispered, "Wait, where's the contamination?" She pointed again with flair. "Improper waste disposal. It's a threat to our community." I nearly laughed. That fire ring had been there 5 years, safer than half the backyard bonfire pits in Magnolia Glen. So I did what I do best, present facts. I showed the survey, the property lines, the county stamps. That's when the tone shifted. One of the women, cardiganed and looking suddenly unsure, asked Darla, "You told us this was community land, that we voted on it." Darla didn't blink. "It's a complicated legal situation," she said. "The important thing is protecting the ecosystem." Another guy stepped forward, silver hair and suspicion in his eyes. "You said at the last meeting that the HOA already had access rights." The way he said it froze me. Access rights. Past tense, like something already signed. That's when it all clicked. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a setup. Darla wasn't trying to stop me from camping, she was trying to establish authority on paper, on camera, in minds. That fire ring, that hammock, they were just props now. Her real goal was to make this lake feel public before anyone asked for proof. A little lie here, a meeting note there, and boom, community lake by default. It was brilliant, manipulative, and about to backfire spectacularly. As the group wandered around awkwardly, I noticed one of them live streaming the entire thing to the Magnolia Glen HOA Facebook group. Day 1 of environmental documentation, she narrated like she was David Attenborough with a GoPro. Future generations will thank us for preserving this resource. Darla turned to the camera and waved like a politician breaking ground on a fake park. This is the future Magnolia Glen Community Recreation Area, she said. I raised an eyebrow. You mean my lake? She ignored me, of course. Just then, Officer Dunn's cruiser pulled up again. He looked at the group, then at me, and sighed like a man who hadn't had coffee yet. Back already? He asked. They're filming an imaginary crime scene, I said. I've got the documents right here. Darla launched into a fresh tirade about hostile property holders and unauthorized structures. Dunn didn't even flinch. Ma'am, he said slowly, unless you can produce legal documents that override this man's deed, you and your team need to leave. Darla's lips tightened. Her phone was still streaming, and you could see it right there in her eyes. That moment where someone realizes they've just been caught live on tape writing checks they can't cash. I thought Saturday's convoy was as dramatic as it could get. 3 vehicles, clipboard cosplay, and a woman yelling watershed violation like it was a code red, but I was wrong. Sunday, Darla returned with reinforcements. Real ones this time. She brought the full HOA brass, 4 official-looking folks she called the Community Oversight Delegation. Translation, her gardening club with upgraded clipboards. Jim, Alice, Craig, and poor Dottie, who looked like she got tricked into thinking this was a birdwatching trip. They lined up like they were reviewing troops, nodding solemnly at my fire pit as if ashes were cause for a community lockdown. That's when Darla pulled out her phone, turned to the group, and with a voice polished by years of community theater said, Day 2 of Lake Review begins now. This is critical work for our subdivision. I hadn't laughed out loud in days, but I nearly lost it when she whispered, rolling and action. It would have been funny if it wasn't so calculated. Darla wasn't documenting anything. She was manufacturing legitimacy, one shaky livestream at a time. She panned the camera across my campsite like it was a crime scene and started narrating like she was auditioning for a Netflix docuseries. Clear evidence of environmental degradation. She even zoomed in on a paper plate in my trash bag and muttered, This is what happens when you let unregulated activity go unchecked. I stepped into the frame, holding my survey map and deed, and said, Ma'am, that's my sandwich plate from lunch. You're live streaming leftovers. But the comment section lit up with HOA followers thanking her for protecting our future lake. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about rules. It was about belief. And Darla, bless her heart, had built herself a church. After the live stream, Jim pulled me aside, looking genuinely confused. So wait, this really isn't HOA land? I showed him the full documentation. Everything stamped, sealed, dated by the county. His eyes scanned it like he'd just realized his whole reality might be written in dry erase marker. Darla told us the HOA secured lake rights last year, he said. She said we just hadn't finalized the paperwork. I raised an eyebrow. Finalized with who? Me? That's when Alice chimed in, quiet but firm. We've been paying access fees, $50 a month for 6 months. I paused. Access to what? She looked around, then said, Well, to this, the lake. That sinking feeling hit me like a brick. It was official. Darla wasn't just staging a performance. She was cashing tickets to it. And I was the unpaid set designer. Craig, the tall one with the gold HOA pin and a Bluetooth in his ear, tried to brush it off. It's just pre-planning, he muttered, like that made it better. Dottie, meanwhile, clutched her clipboard to her chest and whispered, I just wanted to plant flowers by the water. That's when I asked the million-dollar question. How much has Darla collected so far? They all looked at each other, hesitant, until Jim finally said, She mentioned about 15 grand for shoreline development and future amenities. My jaw didn't drop because it couldn't. It was too clenched. $15,000. That wasn't just a hustle anymore. That was fraud dressed up in gardening gloves and HOA bylaws. But what really froze my blood was the realization that Darla didn't just believe she could take my lake. She had already sold it. Watching their faces twist between doubt and embarrassment, I knew this group wasn't the enemy. They were the audience. And Darla had given them front-row seats to a fantasy. When they packed up and left, Darla lingered behind. "We'll be back with our environmental consultants," she said calmly, as if this was just the beginning of a routine zoning request. I asked her flat out, "How many families have you told this was public land?" She smiled without blinking. "Enough." I watched her drive off, streaming again, probably updating her viewers on the progress at their lake. I looked around my peaceful shoreline, the same one I'd fished on since before her subdivision had plumbing, and I realized I wasn't dealing with a neighbor anymore. I was dealing with a political campaign, a pyramid scheme, and a made-for-TV courtroom drama, all wrapped up in one pastel pantsuited woman with a camera and a cause. And the worst part? Her audience believed her. But I had something stronger than a comment section. I had paper, and I had time. And I had a sense that Darla's empire of lies was about to hit a truth-shaped wall. People think scams wear ski masks and sneak through windows, but sometimes they wear blazers and carry clipboards. What Darla built wasn't just a lie, it was a belief system, sold one live stream at a time. And the lesson slapped me harder than any fine or fence line dispute. Truth doesn't shout, it waits. It stacks receipts. It gathers quiet strength until it's undeniable. And while Darla filmed fantasy, I was sitting on fact. Cold, hard, county-stamped facts. The real fight wasn't just about my lake. It was about whether reality still mattered in a world where a confident lie can raise 15 grand. That's when I knew. I wasn't just defending land anymore. I was defending the truth. And Darla Penrose had just poked the bear that reads deeds for fun. Monday morning I called in sick to a job I don't usually skip. Not because I had a fever, but because I had a hunch. And nothing burns hotter than the suspicion that someone's selling pieces of your property like raffle tickets. First thing I did was install a security camera at the tree line facing the lake. Figured if Darla wanted to treat my shoreline like a timeshare showroom, I might as well start charging rent in evidence. Turns out I didn't have to wait long. Barely got the thing mounted before she arrived. White SUV, pastel pantsuit, same high-energy delusion. And with her, 3 full families, kids in tow, smiling like they'd just been promised beachfront in Colorado. Darla led them around like a tour guide at Colonial Williamsburg. "Right here," she said, pointing to my dock, "will be the community fishing platform. We're in the final stages of acquisition." Final stages? Lady, you're in the final stages of make-believe. What made it worse, what made it hurt, was the little girl. Couldn't have been more than 6, skipping rocks and spinning around, shouting, "This is my secret pirate bay." Her mom laughed, took a picture. Her dad asked if there would be lifeguards. Darla didn't miss a beat. Of course, safety is our top priority once the legal transition completes. Legal transition? The only thing transitioning here was my patience into fury. I watched this child name rocks for treasure and pick up pirate jewels from my beach, while Darla spun sugar from spiderwebs, and all I could think was, she's handing out dreams like candy, hoping nobody asks for receipts. That wasn't just fraud anymore. That was emotional pickpocketing. And those kids? They were the bait. That kind of thing stays with you, especially when you've got the footage to prove it. By Wednesday, I'd had enough. I tracked down one of the parents from the last tour, sweet folks, real estate refugees from 2 counties over. Met them at the community center where the kids were busy drawing crayon maps of the new lakefront rec area. I introduced myself gently, told them I was the owner of the property they'd been touring. At first confusion, then disbelief, then that deep, sickening quiet when someone realizes they've been lied to with a smile. "That's impossible," the mom whispered. "We saw the plans, the mural, everything." That word stopped me. Mural. "What mural?" I asked. She blinked. "The one in the HOA hall, floor to ceiling, your lake, playground, picnic areas, even a little marina. The kids helped paint it." My stomach dropped like it missed the elevator. Darla hadn't just built a fantasy, she'd decorated it. I drove straight to the HOA hall and asked to see the mural. One of the board members, Tim, nervous energy in a human shell, let me in. What I saw made me pause hard. There it was. My lake. In acrylic, smiling kids' handprints around the border, a bright red picnic pavilion where my storage shed is, and a cheerful little boat dock labeled Future Community Marina. I walked up close, and there it was. My dock. Right down to the chipped rail I hadn't gotten around to fixing. Darla had painted my real property into her imaginary park. It was like seeing your own face in a stranger's wedding album, familiar and horrifying all at once. That mural wasn't just decoration. It was propaganda. A hand-painted promise to innocent families that their summer dreams were already bought and paid for. And it was all one big lie, baked in optimism and sealed with children's fingerprint. My voice caught a little, thinking about that little girl in her pirate bay. When fraud wears a tie, it's business. But when it borrows a crayon, it's criminal on a whole different level. I went home and watched the security footage again, just to be sure I hadn't exaggerated it in my own mind. But there it was, Darla narrating like a Discovery Channel host, peddling her fantasy shoreline with the kind of flair usually reserved for politicians and infomercial hosts. "The community garden will go here," she said, pointing at a patch of wild flowers I've protected for years. "We'll have benches lining the trail for senior enjoyment." I nearly choked on my coffee when she promised future lake access discounts for early contributors. This wasn't just miscommunication. This was a pitch deck with a body count. I saved every clip, time-stamped it, backed it up. Because while Darla was building castles in the air, I was building a legal case on the ground. But the worst part? She still had believers. People writing checks, kids making summer plans, and that mural meant this wasn't just her fantasy anymore. It had become theirs too. If you found this story helpful or it reminded you of someone dealing with the same HOA madness, do them a favor, send it their way. And if you've got your own tale of clipboard crusaders or property drama, drop it in the comments. We read everyone, and trust me, this community loves a good showdown. By Thursday, I'd added more security cameras than a Vegas casino. Front gate, dock path, fire ring, every angle covered. I wasn't trying to be paranoid, I was just tired of having my land show up on someone else's tour schedule. Sure enough, within 24 hours, the cameras caught Darla back in action. This time with a full-blown HOA open house. She pulled up in heels and a fresh set of blueprints, guiding two families like a real estate agent with a property portfolio she did. "This spot's perfect for kayaking," she said, pointing to the shallow inlet where I'd taught my nephew to skip stones. "And over here, future snack bar site." The man nodded, the woman smiled, and I stood in my living room, watching the footage like it was a deleted scene from Fraud the Musical. The kicker? She called me the current property management liaison, like I was a glorified lifeguard waiting to be phased out. She lied so confidently she could have sold sunscreen in a snowstorm. That afternoon, I decided it was time for the community to hear the truth. I printed stills from the footage and brought them to the Juniper Ridge HOA clubhouse. Families were gathered for what looked like a lake planning meeting. Folding chairs, cookies, and a big whiteboard that read, "Summer Access Vision." I asked for a moment, introduced myself calmly, and laid the photos on the table. Silence fell like a dropped pin. One by one, parents recognized themselves in the images, walking my shoreline, smiling at their kids, listening to Darla make promises that now felt rotten. The room cracked open. "She said we owned part of it," one father muttered. "She said the papers were being processed." Another mom clutched her purse like it might run off. "She said my HOA fees were funding improvements." And just like that, belief started leaking out of the room. But Darla wasn't done. No. She arrived 10 minutes later, saw the prints, and pivoted like a pro. "These photos were doctored," she declared. "He's the trespasser. He's staging this to keep us off our lake." She pointed at me like she was mid-episode of Law & Order HOA unit. But you could feel it. The doubt was shifting directions. I thought the drama might calm after that. Wishful thinking. Friday morning, I got a call from Deputy Dunn. "We need to talk," he said flatly. "Darla's filed a police report. Says you brandished a shovel and threatened her contractors." I blinked. "A shovel?" "That's what she wrote," he sighed. "Claimed you made threats of violence while waving it around." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I invited him over, pulled up the time-stamped footage. There I was, standing in pajama pants, holding a coffee mug, talking calmly to the landscaping crew as I handed them my survey map. No shovel, no threats, not even a raised voice. Just visual proof that Darla's fantasy was slipping past the boundaries of HOA drama and into full-blown felony territory. Dunn watched quietly, then leaned back and said the line that made the whole month worth it. "She's just built your whole case for you." It was the moment her lies met their mirror, and it was glorious. By Saturday, the paperwork was in motion. Criminal fraud investigation officially opened. Deputy Dunn delivered a restraining order with all the precision of a man who'd waited weeks to do it. "Mr. Penrose," he said firmly, "you are hereby ordered to cease all contact and stay 500 feet from Mr. Collier's property." Her jaw dropped so hard you could have timed it with a stopwatch. "This is harassment of community leaders," she wailed. "He's ruining a public good." But the crowd watching, yes, neighbors had gathered, wasn't clapping this time. No Facebook live stream, no HOA flags waving, just quiet faces, some ashamed, some angry, all realizing they'd followed a woman into battle who forgot to pack a map. It was the first time I saw Darla blink without a comeback. And it wouldn't be the last. The irony was rich. For all her claims of protecting the community, Darla had exposed it to lawsuits, police visits, and now criminal charges. Her empire of stickers and fake bylaws was crumbling under the weight of one simple truth. Documents don't lie, and neither do cameras. And if you're going to weaponize a clipboard, you'd better make sure the handle's not pointing back at you. The fraud charge was just the start. The DA was circling, neighbors were lawyering up, and Darla, well, she'd traded in her pink hard hat for pearl-studded panic. I wasn't celebrating just yet, but I'll admit I stood a little taller that evening, watching the sun hit the lake she tried to sell in pieces. She wanted to build an empire out of make-believe. I had built a case out of facts, and now the law had finally shown up with its own clipboard. By the time the court date rolled around, it felt less like a legal hearing and more like a neighborhood reunion hosted inside a pressure cooker. The courtroom was packed. Parents in business casual, reporters with notepads, and even a few folks who just came for the drama. You know you're at the center of a spectacle when the local news sets up outside and two people bring lawn chairs. Darla arrived in a pastel blazer, pearls gleaming, expression tighter than a sealed Tupperware lid. Her lawyer, a slick-talking fella with hair that hadn't moved since the Clinton administration, tried to paint her as a visionary misunderstood by rigid bureaucracy. "My client," he said grandly, "sought only to enhance her community's access to natural resources." I nearly choked. Enhance? She'd tried to annex my lake with clipboards and crayons. When it was my turn, I didn't say much. I just hit play. 40 minutes of security footage rolled in the courtroom like a slow, devastating train. Darla live streaming to HOA members, telling families they'd have lake access by summer. Her pointing to my dock, my trees, my shoreline, claiming future amenities and planned improvements. The sound was crystal clear. You could hear her promise safety inspections, picnic benches, even community-funded paddle boats. The room shifted as people watched. Heads tilted, shoulders tensed. One father rubbed his forehead like he was trying to erase the memory of cutting a check. The moment that really broke the room, when she told that little girl, "This can be your pirate cove." You could have heard a pin drop, until the judge exhaled loudly, scribbled something in her notes, and shook her head. Darla's credibility melted faster than a snowman at a bonfire. Darla took the stand, and I'll give her credit, she stayed committed to the character. Claimed she didn't know the property was private, that she believed acquisition was imminent and that I had misled her by not posting more signs. Her lawyer even tried to say I manipulated the community by withholding access to a natural resource. I nearly laughed. Apparently owning land now comes with a PR requirement, but the judge wasn't buying it. "Mrs. Penrose," she said slowly, "what you're describing isn't miscommunication, it's misappropriation, manipulation, and calculated fraud." You could feel the shift in the room, like a balloon finally popping after days of slow inflation. "And Darla?" She blinked. For once, no speech, no pivot, no live stream to spin the moment. Just her, a microphone, and the walls closing in. The verdict came like a lightning bolt. Darla was ordered to pay $50,000, 0 cents, in damages for fraud, harassment, and defamation. But the kicker came after. The judge ordered a full audit of the HOA's financials. That's when the real flood started. Turns out the lake scam was just the tip of the iceberg. Missing funds for landscaping, canceled contractor checks, a dog park enhancement fund that somehow paid for Darla's vacation in Santa Fe. One HOA board member looked like he'd just seen his retirement shrink. Another started crying softly into her purse. Darla's illusion of competence evaporated under the fluorescent courtroom lights. Her HOA supporters weren't just embarrassed, they were livid. What began as community unity turned into mass betrayal. And I just sat there, sipping courthouse water, watching justice tap dance across her spreadsheets. As the courtroom emptied, people approached me, not with anger, but gratitude. One dad shook my hand and said, "You didn't just protect your lake, you saved our neighborhood." Another handed me a kid's drawing of a lake with the words, "Thank you, Mr. Troy." I tucked it in my folder next to the court order. That drawing was worth more than the check. Because, in the end, this wasn't just about land or lies. It was about the principle, calm beats chaos, evidence trumps ego, and if someone tries to steal your peace with a clipboard and a smile, you'd better answer with a camera and the truth. But we weren't done yet, not by a long shot. Because Darla may have lost the case, but the HOA's circus wasn't over. Not with this kind of fallout coming in next part. 2 weeks after the gavel dropped, a moving truck pulled away from Darla's driveway like a retreating army that lost the war but left the flags behind. Her house, once headquarters of the imaginary HOA Supremacy Council, was sold in silence to cover court-ordered damages. No farewell tour, no live stream, just a for sale sign that leaned like the last joke in a long, bad punchline. Neighbors said she left in the night. No forwarding address, no goodbyes. 1 minute she was planning fishing tournaments for imaginary lakeside residents. The next she was a cautionary tale in pearls. Her neon helmet was gone, but the half-installed sign on my property still tilted like her legacy, slanted, absurd, and stubbornly resistant to gravity. What followed wasn't just justice, it was reform. The new HOA board stepped in with less ego, more spreadsheets, and a deep desire to never appear in court again. They scrapped every development vision Darla had floated, opened their books, and even invited the sheriff's department to review procedures for handling disputes. For the first time in HOA history, transparency wasn't a buzzword. It was the agenda. Some of the families who'd once backed Darla came to me, not with excuses, but apologies. "We were sold a dream," one dad admitted. "Didn't realize we were paying in dignity." A mom who once live-streamed Darla's tours now asked me to speak at the next meeting about property rights, boundary law, and how to spot fraud wrapped in friendliness. Poetic irony tastes a lot better when served with cookies and a handshake. Life returned to the lake slowly, like sunlight creeping back after a storm. The dock was mine again. Quiet, peaceful, utterly unlive-streamed. I finally installed permanent fencing and even replaced the old fire ring with a new one. Safe, up to code, and notably not used as a prop in a fake environmental violation. The camera system stayed, not out of fear, but as a quiet monument to what happens when documentation beats dramatics. The land felt cleaner somehow, not just physically but spiritually. like it had exhaled. And me? I slept better. No more early morning shouting, no more clipboard raids, just still water and the occasional frog trying out for an opera. Then one Saturday, something surprising happened. The little girl, the one who'd named my lake her secret pirate bay, came back with her parents. But this time, they knocked. They asked permission, and when she walked to the shore, she didn't yell or claim it. She just stood still, looked out, and whispered, "It's even prettier than I remembered." Her dad took a photo, this time with my blessing, and she left behind a small painted rock with glitter and a smiley face, tucked beneath the new fire ring. I kept it, because sometimes forgiveness looks like a pebble with sparkles. And justice? Sometimes it sounds like a bird call over still water. Looking back, I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't plan to become the unexpected custodian of truth, the reluctant teacher of deed law, or the guy who turned an HOA mutiny into a courtroom masterclass. But sometimes chaos hands you a clipboard and dares you to sign away your peace. And if you've got cameras, calm, and a good lawyer, you don't just protect what's yours, you leave the world a little sharper, a little wiser, and a lot more careful about who they trust in a blazer. The lake is still mine. The peace? Hard-earned. And Darla? She may have disappeared, but around here her name floats like folklore. Proof that even the wildest HOA delusions eventually sink. And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. You don't need to raise your voice to protect what's yours. You just need to raise the right documents. Because when noise meets evidence, evidence wins. I didn't win because I was loud or clever or backed by a group. I won because I stayed calm, stayed legal, and stayed watching. If you take nothing else from this mess, take this. Document everything. Never match crazy with crazy, and when fraud wears pearls and brings a clipboard army, just smile, press record, and let the truth do the talking. This story wasn't just about a lake. It was about the line between bold and illegal, between community and control, between what's yours and what someone else feels entitled to. And I hope hearing it gave you not just a few laughs, but a few tools. Tools to protect what's rightfully yours. Tools to face nonsense with grace. And maybe a little courage to stand taller when someone tries to shrink your boundaries. If you found value in this story, share it. Send it to someone you care about who's dealing with HOA chaos, bad leadership, or just needs a reminder that truth, when documented, still wins. Drop a comment below and tell us what you took away. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we've got more stories like this coming, and trust me, the next one, it's even twistier. And hey, now that Darla's clipboards have officially been retired, I've got a question for you. What should I tackle next? More HOA madness? Legal loopholes with poetic payback? Or maybe a story about the quiet neighbor who wasn't so quiet after all? Drop a comment and tell me what kind of stories you want to hear next. This channel's not just about telling stories, it's about building a community that loves justice, humor, and the satisfying sound of a scam collapsing in real time. So if that's your vibe, hit like, tap subscribe, and share this video with a friend who needs a reminder that calm and a camera go a long way. And keep your notifications on, because the next tale, let's just say, it starts with a fence and ends with federal agents.